You think you can just come onto my property and take my boy? That was the exact thought that hit me before I even saw his face. By the time I turned the corner of the garage, I knew I'd been right. This wasn't a polite neighborhood visit, it was a setup. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. The harassment started months ago. It began with letters tucked under my door, unsigned, printed in all caps, unapproved vehicle on property. Garage clutter violates community standards, reporting to HOA board. The funny part? My street didn't even fall under HOA jurisdiction. I checked county zoning myself. The boundary ended 2 blocks down, but logic never stopped power-hungry people with clipboards. Then came the strangers. A man with a camera parked outside one morning, pretending to survey the area. A woman I'd never met knocking on my door with safety inspection, papers that didn't have a single county seal. And through it all, the same name kept coming up in whispers: the HOA enforcement team. I'd brushed it off at first. I'm a working Navy SEAL, still active. My schedule's tight, and I don't have time to wrestle with suburban politics. My 11-year-old son, Mason, knew the rules. Don't talk to strangers, keep the gates locked, and call me if anything feels off. But that morning, I learned that evil doesn't wait for permission. I'd gone out for maybe 20 minutes, a hardware store run, nothing major. Mason was in the garage working on the dirt bike we'd been restoring together. I remember his smile when I left, grease on his hands, a wrench hanging from his belt loop. When I pulled back into the driveway, everything looked normal until I heard it. A single muffled thud. Then my boy's voice, sharp, startled. "Let me go." My heart dropped. I sprinted through the side gate and rounded the corner into the garage. There was only one man, a man with tattoos, green top with block letters HOA enforcement on the shirt. He had one hand on Mason's arm, hauling him toward the driveway. Mason's cheek burned red from a slap. That was it. "Hey!" I shouted, my boots slamming against the concrete. The man turned, startled, his fake badge glinting in the light. Up close, it was worse. A flimsy laminate tag with no department seal, no ID number, nothing real about it. He sneered. "This property is under inspection. The minor is being questioned about unauthorized." I cut him off. I wrapped an arm around his neck, used my weight to drive him into the cinder block wall, and felt him reach for the knife at his hip. I ripped it free with my forearm. Metal bounced on concrete. He flailed, and I drove my shoulder into his ribs. The first strike cracked something, a rib, and he gasped. I twisted his arm with a controlled, brutal torque until it folded the wrong way and broke with a dry, humiliating snap. He howled a shocked animal sound and folded to his knees. I kept him down long enough to make sure he couldn't get up. Zip ties tightened around his wrists. He went limp, breath shallow and ragged. I hauled him upright by the shirt, his broken arm zipped tied. "Who are you?" I demanded. "Who sent you?" He winced, teeth blood-stained. "She runs everything," he muttered. "Said you'd fight back, said to make it look like a safety check." "Who?" I barked, shaking him hard enough to rattle his fake badge. His eyes darted toward the street, fear cutting through the pain. "Karen," he whispered. "She said you'd learn your lesson." Before I could press further, tires crunched outside. Slow, deliberate. A pair of headlights rolled to a stop at the curb. "She's here," he breathed. Karen stepped out of the SUV like she owned the evening. Clipboard tucked under her arm, smile practiced and cold. "Good evening," she trilled, voice syrupy and fake. "I thought I'd stop by to see if you'd cooperate." I shoved the man back so he slammed onto the driveway. Mason crept behind me, eyes wide and shaking. "Dad," he whispered. Karen continued, pretending not to notice the man groaning on the ground. "We're just trying to keep the neighborhood safe." "You should have stayed off my property," I snapped. "And maybe you should know something. I'm not even in your HOA." That got the neighbors' attention. Porch lights flicked on up and down the street. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "I'm calling the cops right now." Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens grew closer. Karen's confidence flickered for the first time. 2 sheriff cruisers rolled to a stop out front, lights flashing red and blue across the streets. Deputy Parks stepped out, level-headed, steady, and not in the mood for games. "What's going on here?" he asked, scanning the scene. I held up my phone. "This man broke into my garage and tried to drag my son out. I restrained him. My garage cam caught everything." Parks raised a brow. "You have footage?" "Full recording," I said, showing him the live feed. He leaned closer. The grainy video was clear enough. The fake HOA enforcement logo across the vest, Mason flinching as the man slapped him, the rough grip as he tried to pull him toward the driveway. Karen's composure cracked another inch. "This is being taken completely out of context," she started, stepping forward. "He was following a compliance." Parks cut her off. "Ma'am, impersonating an officer, that's a felony. And assaulting a minor. You'd better start explaining why your so-called enforcer is wearing tactical gear and attacking children." Karen froze. The deputy called for backup and turned to his partner. "Cuff him. Get the medics to check the kid." Mason stepped out beside me, bruised but steady. He looked up at Parks and said quietly, "He said he was taking me to the board." The deputy's jaw tightened. "The board doesn't take kids anywhere," he muttered. Neighbors began whispering louder now, cameras recording everything. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear, her authority dissolving under the red and blue glow. Parks turned to me again. "You said you're not part of the HOA?" "No, sir. County line ends 2 blocks east. I verified it myself." He scribbled something in his notepad. "That makes this trespassing and impersonation, not enforcement." Karen's voice cracked. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. Parks looked unimpressed. "Ma'am, I think everyone here does now." As the deputies led the fake cop away, the neighbors applauded quietly. The man groaned, his arm hanging limp, muttering Karen's name again and again. She stood frozen, clutching her clipboard like a shield that finally failed her. I looked at Mason, bruised but brave, and swore this would never happen again. The law would handle her next, but if she tried anything else, I'd be ready. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. The sun was barely up the next morning when the sheriff called. I'd barely slept. Mason finally crashed on the couch around 3 a.m., still shaken. I stood in the kitchen, coffee cooling in my hands, staring at the garage camera feed that kept replaying in my head. Deputy Parks's voice came steady through the phone. "We've got updates," he said. "You might want to come down to the station." When I got there, the fake HOA cop, the same man who'd tried to grab my son, was in custody, sitting in a sling. His right arm was shattered, 4 ribs broken clean through, 1 fractured. According to the report, the doctors said he'd be in the hospital for at least 6 weeks before facing trial. I didn't feel guilty about any of it. You lay hands on a kid, you face the consequences, one way or another. Karen, on the other hand, had folded faster than I expected. The deputies had found files in her SUV, printed inspection reports, forged letters, and a list labeled non-compliant homes. Mine was circled in red. Turns out she'd been running a rogue HOA enforcement team. A few hired security dropouts dressed in black gear with fake badges, sent to intimidate homeowners who ignored her authority. Problem was, my home wasn't even under her jurisdiction. And impersonating law enforcement? That's a fast track to state and federal charges. According to Parks, the DA's office had already filed impersonation of a peace officer, assault on a minor, criminal trespass and false imprisonment, conspiracy to commit assault. Karen tried to talk her way out of it, blaming the man, claiming she didn't authorize violence. But the emails found on her laptop told another story. Orders, times, payment logs. It was all there. "I'm pressing every charge available," I told Parks. "For my son and for every family they scared." He nodded. "You're doing the right thing, like DA's already building the case." That afternoon, the local news picked up the story. Fake HOA enforcer attacks child, exposed by Navy SEAL dad. A week later, I got another update. The fake cop was transferred from the hospital to county jail, still in a sling. He'd face up to 11 years behind bars. Karen, facing multiple felony counts, was sentenced to 4 years in state prison and a lifetime ban from any HOA involvement statewide. The neighborhood finally felt quiet again. Mason was back in the garage finishing the dirt bike we'd been working on. I leaned against the doorway, watching him tighten the bolts. He looked up. "It's over, right, Dad?" "Yeah," I said, watching the moving truck haul away what was left of Karen's things. "It's over." And this time I meant it. Not because I broke him, but because I made sure it would never happen again. What do you think, folks? Was that justice, or just me doing what any father would have done? Tell me in the comments. What would you have done if a fake HOA cop slapped your son? I would love to know. The end.